Okay, anatomy and physiology. This is not a massively large section, but I really do want to hit in on the basics of what the heart does, what makes it a unique organ, and how that turns in, or how we are able to measure the heart in terms of the electrical output that it creates. And there's a lot that goes into that. So here we go. Very simply put, everyone's got a heart, even the Grinch. But for humans, what we have is it sits right here towards the center of your chest, just a little bit off to the left side, and particularly the left ventricle and apex are off to the left. But if you just make your fist right now, that's about how big your heart is, give or take. It lies obliquely, so it is turned on its side. So it's not really a heart that's shaped like this. It's more of a heart that's shaped like this. It's off at a bit of an angle. It has a two-layer membrane around the outside of it called the pericardium, tough, fibrous outer part. Now, the layers of the heart itself, it's important to keep a few things in mind. For starters, the fact that it is inside out is the biggest thing to know. What makes it unique is if you think about your arm has skin on the outside, and your muscle is underneath that, and then innermost to that is going to be veins and arteries and nerves. Heart's the opposite. The epicardium, the outer portion, so epidermis, epicardium, the outside, is where actually all of your arteries, your nerves, and your lymphatics, everything's on the outside, and your veins as well. Now, beneath that is your myocardium. Now, the myocardium is particularly important because that's the workhorse of your heart. That's what really does the job. And it's just muscles. Muscle cells, myocardium, because myo means muscle. Lastly, to the innermost portion of the heart is going to be your endocardium. And the endocardium is made mostly of connective tissue. It's really just cartilage. Now, what makes it really cool is that the cartilage that lines the inside of your heart is continuous with the arteries and veins that it's connected to, so it has one smooth surface. Another factor that makes the endocardium really unique is how tough and fibrous it is. You think about the cartilage in your ear or in your nose, it can withstand a fair amount of wear and tear and abuse, and so that's what allows it to beat for 90 or 100 years without really needing any repair to the innermost layer of it. So let's review the chambers of the heart really quick. Important things to know about the heart is it has a top and a bottom half. And so when I refer to top, I talk about the atria because they're at the top, they're towards your head, and the ventricles are below that, so they're down. Unfortunately, when those guys way back when named it, they actually named it upside down, where the base of this triangle is the atria, and the apex is the ventricles. And so this right here is the apex. Now, that's just a unique thing that they did. For me, I really like to look at the heart in terms of the way the blood flows through. It's usually the easiest way to keep track of it. So let's do this. Let's do blood flow. And so we will start with the right atrium, which is right here. And then that blood flows through. And of course that blue blood is the deoxygenated stuff, right? It's coming back from the rest of your body. It moves from the right atrium into the right ventricle. That blood is then pumped here into the lungs, because take that deoxygenated blood, you put it in the lungs, so then that way oxygen can be added. Now, once it finishes in the lungs, it's been oxygenated, it turns red, right? That's how we always think of things. And so it comes back from the lungs into the left atrium. Now the left atrium then helps that blood flow through, pumps it through into the left ventricle. And once it's finished in the left ventricle, it pumps through, on out, through to the rest of your body, through the aorta and the rest of your arteries. So the coronary circulation, how is it laid out? What's going on? So remember, the epicardium, the outside of the heart, is where the arteries and nerves and everything lay, and it feeds in kind of like tree roots. But everything starts right here at the base of the aorta. So that just as blood comes out of the ventricle, it has that first opportunity to work its way back into the heart and feed those muscles. So on this side here, we have the RCA, so right coronary artery, and that's the one here that wraps. And I like this transparent view because you can actually see how it goes around the back side of the heart. And then on the left side of the heart, you have your LCA, and that comes through here, and it actually branches into two separate pieces. It branches into the left circumflex, and then I use a different name for this, where we actually call this one running right down the front here the LDA. Sorry, LAD, left anterior descending artery. This question hopefully won't be too tough. Which layer of the heart is responsible for the strength of contraction, also known as the workhorse of the heart? Well, just break these down real quick. The endocardium is that inner lining, and that's mostly cartilage. The myocardium is the muscle layer. The epicardium is the outer layer, and that's where your arteries and nerves and things are at. And then, of course, the sinus node is part of the electrical conduction system. So based on all that, it makes perfect sense that the myocardium is the answer. Deoxygenated blue blood, if you will, venous blood, returning to the heart enters through which part? Well, which half of the heart receives blood from the rest of the body? It's going to be your right sides, correct? So now you just have, because your pulmonary veins and your left atrium are the red blood side of the heart. So between the atrium and ventricle, which one does the blood enter first? It's the atrium, of course. Freshly oxygenated, or red blood, exiting the lungs, enters which chamber of the heart? So if you look at that heart diagram, which chamber receives blood from the lung? Well, the right and left, the right atrium, right ventricle, those are blue blood sides, so those are definitely off. But if you look at your pulmonary veins, which empty out of the lungs, and your left atrium, which is then the next in line, of course, with this question, which chamber of the heart? Left atrium.